Alright, so after a few month hiatus, I've got my 3D printer back out. Some of you might have seen some of my videos where I've printed some World War II naval ships. I thought while I had this out that I might record a video and just show people, if you're not familiar with the process, or if you're new to 3D printing, how you go about sort of taking the 3D model files and then getting getting an output, getting those the model printed itself. So I thought I'd run you through that. I'm no expert at this sort of stuff. I haven't spent an awful lot of time with it. To be honest, I'm quite lazy. But I think it'll give you a good idea of if it might be something that you're interested in, or if you'd rather just stick to letting someone else do the work and just buying your models. So what I want to start with is I wanted to print a T62 tank. So I had a look on Thingiverse. I'll put links to anything that I sort of mentioned in the description below. So there's loads of stuff on there, and I've downloaded this tank. But if I open it from scratch, so it's a two-parter. It's got the turret and the hull separate, and this is what you would get if you were to open it up in this is Chitubox, which is the sort of software that comes with the printer. I've got a Elegoo Mars Resin 3D printer. So I suppose a little bit, actually stepping back in terms of printers, there's two types of printers. There's the ones you might have seen where they have a spool of plastic, and it's sort of like a hot glue gun on a plate, and it sort of goes around and builds up the layers that way. And the other type of printer, and the one that I've got, is a resin printer, which is where you have a vat of liquid resin and light used to cure very thin layers one at a time, and it builds up your model that way. So if I just quickly slice this just to show you how that might look. What actually happens is it prints upside down. So you've got this build plate, this metal plate, and this is sort of sitting in the resin. And what effectively happens is one layer at a time is printed. So what it creates is effectively a mask, and light shines through any of the white parts and would cure that piece of that resin, and then it would move up to the next layer and so forth. So if I speed this up, and what you would see is your layer by layer, our tank is going to build out of the resin as the build plate moves away from the liquid. So I might, if I stop this maybe and speed it up, you see that the tank builds up. And this would take me 5.5 hours, and at the end of it, I would have a tank, except I wouldn't, because this is some of the hardship that you find with resin 3D printers. It's not necessarily just print, plug and play, just drop this in. This as I've loaded this in, this would not print at all. This would be a total disaster. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is here you've got these green dots. And that's where this particular model is touching the build plate, the metal build plate. But what that means in this instance is the whole weight of the tank is, the only addition to the metal plate is on those green dots. So as soon as this gets any weight to it, it's just going to drop off. This is not going to be able to hold the tank to the plate. There's not enough surface area there. The second problem is, and it's the way I've mentioned that it builds up layer by layer. What you get is a thing called islands. So if I scroll up here, here's a good example. So let's see if I can just skip one at a time. Okay, so our drums here are okay because they've got they're stuck to the build plate and they're building off that. But what we've got here is we've got this particular layer here, 4 islands here. They are just floating in midair. So when the light shines through, they'll cure and then they'll just float away. They're not attached to anything. They're not attached to the build plate and they're not attached to a piece of the model that's already been created. So what we'll find is we'll actually all of these 4 blocks here, as we go up, none of this would print because they would just float away. They're not attached to anything. So we've lost all of this section of the model. None of this is building. Maybe it's here where it touches. We might be able to get some restore part of that bit, but we've effectively lost all of this. And depending on where that is in the model, that could obviously be a significant, and it's built. We would have lost all of this, so none of this would build now, and we would be snookered, and that would be the end of that. And I'll tell you how we sort of fix that in a second. But the last issue, it's not really, it makes no difference in this instance because we wouldn't have got very far. But the time that it takes to build or print a model is depending on the height of the model. So I think we saw when we sliced this was going to take 5.5 hours to print. So that's over 1,400 layers. It's got to print. If I was to flatten this down like this, we've now only got 400 layers, and so this would only take an hour and a bit to print. So it doesn't matter how much you're printing. This could be a solid block here, but if it's tall, it's going to take a long time. If it's close to the build plate and it's less amount of layers, then it will build quicker. So there's a trade-off here of trying to get the model in the optimum position to be able to print and reduce those islands, and also potentially not waste a load of time when we could reduce that down. So the islands, what we do, and this is the sort of crux of 3D printing, or the bit that takes the most time, is what we do is we build support to give an anchor point for those islands. And Chitubox has a built-in section, and we can go in here and we can manually add. So if you'll see now, if I turn it over, we're in this mode. Anything red is a potential area that is unsupported. So that makes sense for the bottom of the hull there. It's obviously not flat onto the build plate, so we would need to support that. So I can manually click in here and add some support. And if I scroll down, you see now we've got some supports in there. I can get Chitubox to go and add those supports for me, and it does an okay job. On a sort of less technical model, you might get away with that, but generally I've found it not the best. It also doesn't help with the orientation of the model. It's just whatever the model is in, it's going to try and support that. So what I do, and again, this is all just me sort of Googling and looking on YouTube videos and working things out. There is another piece of software called Pressure Slicer, and it's for another printer, but what this does is it has some good tools to help us optimize basically this model. So if I bring back in my my T62 hull, and if I right click on it, I've got this optimize orientation. So it will try and figure out what the best way is to print out this model. And so this is its first attempt, and this is okay, and this is close to what I want. But going back to what I said before, this is, it's stacked quite high here. This is going to take a very long time to print. So what I tend to do is just keep doing this optimization until I get to something that sort of fits what I'm after. I don't know why would keep giving us different orientations. You would think there is only one optimum way to orientate this, but anyway, hopefully this bit doesn't take too long to find the one I'm after. Sometimes it's just a bit of playing around. So this one is lower, this one looks better, but the problem with this is all of our supports are going to be up here underneath on the top plate, and I don't want to potentially, mark this. So you'll see later, the supports, they leave little marks sometimes. So what I'd like to do is hide the supports on the lower hull, so something that's not going to be obvious or not going to be seen as much. But that's sort of closer to what I was looking for in terms of height. So if I keep going, hopefully we'll get to the one. Right, this is pretty close. So this is not too tall, and it's at a pretty decent orientation. So the next step here is again, Prussia's support generation is a lot better than Chitu boxes. So if I click auto generate, it will have a go at trying to populate all of those support stacks, those support beams that it needs. So there it goes. So that's it done there. I think you could probably see that they look considerably different to Chitu boxes. So I have already printed this out, and what I found is this side all printed lovely. It was probably 90% there, but I did lose a bit of detail on the. I had a bit of distortion on the track here. So what you can do. So normally I would just give this a whirl. I'd give this a shot and see how I get on. You can do manual editing, and you can come in and click around and add a few more support points where you think you might need them. Click apply changes, and it will rebuild that for you. Happy days. And then, so I'm happy with that. This is good as I'm going to get for now. So if I export as the STL file, but at this time including the support, we could call this anything, but T62 hull support, I'll type, save that. And then if we go back into Chitu box, let's get rid of the U. We can open our hull supports is the one I want. Okay. So I've got my model now. I need to just rotate this so it fits nicely. So the red is where it's obviously off the build plate. So that's fine. You can just organize it up. And what I will then do is we can bring in the turret as well. And it's just a case of, just getting things lined up so everything fits. Of course, I'm having an absolute mare today. That's fine. It doesn't matter if the supports overlap a bit, but you can space it out. And this way, this is taking up most of the build plate. But if you have lots of models, you can play a bit of Tetris and get optimize how much you're building. To save time and effort, because like I say, it's not the quantity that you're building, it's how tall the model is that takes the time. So I could litter this with all sorts of stuff, and as long as I'm not above this line of the tank up here, then it's not adding any time to my build. And then the last section is back to the slice. So like I said, it's effectively printing a layer at a time. I think it's currently set to 0.05 millimeters per layer, so it's really thin, but it allows you to get so much detail into that application, into the model. Sorry, and Is this going, or is this going to stop on me? Yeah, it's going, but really slowly. Um, some sections can take a while to slice. But then what I'll do is once I've got that slice data, all it's effectively doing is taking creating an image of every single layer. So in this case, I think it was like, I don't know, 1500 layers or whatever it might be. It's creating sort of 1500 pictures of where it was that mask that I showed right at the start, the black and the white. And then what we'll do is we'll export that, and we'll send that down to the printer. We'll put that on a USB stick and take that down. And that's about it from the computer side. Like I say, this is the bit that makes it, it's not necessarily difficult, but it's time consuming, and it's not like just I can go and grab any model, bang it on here and then print it out. It does take some time and some play around, and some failed prints, and some just experience really, with knowing how things print and how it works and how to get the best out of it. Like I say, I'm quite lazy. I know people go into a lot more depth. A lot of people like to manually place all their supports because, you can be really, you can fine tune, especially maybe it's on a miniature where you want to keep, detail away from faces, and that, a manual option might give you, that that keep the detail that you need. I know there's also software that you can put this in, and it will show you where the islands are, where there's those issues, and you can go in there and fix them up layer by layer. But like I say, I'm quite lazy. I just, bang it into Prussia, do the optimize the orientation, do the auto support, and then, that I'll give that as my first pass, and 97% of the time you're pretty much good to go, or at least it's acceptable to me anyway. um, Especially at smaller scales as well. You know you're not going to notice, a little bit here and there. There are models. There is a big difference between models that are just 3D models that might have come from a game to, models that have been designed specifically for 3D printing. So some models you'll find they'll say, doesn't require support, and they've designed the model in a way that will just print nicely. So it's not always a case of just finding any model and, printing it out. Some are designed better than others. So yeah, it has finally finished. I think it's because I'm recording, but as you can see, it's just created all these, this mask image, and it's going to shine light through the white on each of these layers one at a time. It's going to take 3 hours 42 minutes to print this, and it is going to cost me, the equivalent of £1.30 to print this tank, which is, quite nice and quite cheap, considering what 15mm tanks normally range between £4 to £5, would say. Depending on obviously deals and box sets that you pick up, but, they're definitely not £1.30. Okay, so I'll end this now, and then, I'll take you over to the printer, and we'll get this printing. Okay, guys, see you in a bit. Right, so we're at the printer. I've plugged the USB stick into the back, with our files on that we did on the old computer there. So like I say, it's an Elegoo Mars that we've got here, resin, liquid resin. So you buy it in these big, you can buy, I think 500 litres or, milliliters, or a litre. And this one is the water washable resin. So when I picked this up, these are just starting to come out on the market. So normally you need, bottles of the isopropanol, to clean the resin. This, was supposed to allow you to just wash this in water, although you mustn't, wash it in the sink and just let the stuff down the drain, because the liquid resin is pretty nasty. I don't think
it's probably worth, I think this was an extra £10. The prices might have changed, but I still have to use the ISO to get really good clean, and so I don't know if it's particularly worth it. But there it is. We've got the vat here, the resin vat, and underneath we've got the screen here. And if I did a quick exposure test, you can see here's like the mask with the black and white that we've created, and you can see the light shining through. So in this particular pattern, we'd cure that square in the liquid resin there. So let's get back out of that. So you probably should be wearing gloves. You absolutely should wear gloves when you're handling the model, at least. The resin's not very good for your skin at all. And I'll just top this up because we were just a bit low. And that's all there is to it, really. So we'd click print. We'd find our model that we've done on the computer, and we'd click play, and off the arm would come down, and the printing will start. So there's 900 layers or whatever it is, and it's going to take a couple of hours. So I'll come back to you when we're done. Okay, so we are done. So that took just over 3.5 hours, I think. This is what you are left with. So what we've got to do is use like a spatula or thing to pop the stuff off the base. Sometimes, depending on the support surface area, it can get a bit tricky to get off. I'll put that back on and I'll clean that off later. So this is what you get. So because it's not cured, like the resin is hard, but it's still got a bit of play, and what you can do is just break all the support structure. Just most of the time you can get it off in one piece and just pull it away from the model. It's normally quite satisfying. One or two little bits, but yeah, there we go. Still got a bit of damage on this piece of track, but everything else looks pretty good. So the next step is, because this is the water washable resin, you are supposed to just be able to wash this in water. So what I've got is a Tupperware tub thing. This one's got a strainer. I think this one's I think it's a pickle jar or something, but the strainer is quite good because you can just dump your goods in and give them a wash. There. Get them nicely lathered up, and what I tend to do is I've got a little brush, and I'll just give it a bit of a scrub down, just to try and get as much of the resin off, because I don't think the water works particularly well. You've got to make sure, like I said before, you wear gloves for this, because the resin's nasty on the skin. So yeah, I give these just a good clean. Try and work away any of the resin that might be stuck in any of the gaps, or it kind of feels like it's got a film over the top of the whole lot. So yeah, that's that. And then that's definitely not enough. That's not clean enough. So I know what I normally do then is bring up the isopropanol and just give it a good hose down, and again just going back in there with the brush and you can feel almost straight away that it's coming clean much faster with the isopropyl and all there. So this bit's not too difficult. Just give it a good clean. You've got to make sure, like I said as well, not to pour any of the water or that down the sink with the resin in, because it's bad. So what you can do with the pot of water I've got there is you can empty it out onto a tray and leave it outside, and all the resin will sort of harden in the sun, and then you can just put it in the bin, dispose of it, you know. Okay, so that's that. And then what I tend to do, sorry for knocking the camera, just give it got a microfiber towel just to get it dry. Just get any of that excess water and isopropanol off. We'll do it the same with the hull. So you can see, depends on the light. There you go. You know, all the details there, the grills and the tracks and all the fuel tanks and everything. So you can get some really good results with all of this. So I'm just going to dry this last turret off. I did an extra one because my first turret barrel was no good. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll take and show you the last bit. So if we just pop over here for a second. So the bevel thing is definitely adding a few pounds. Like, I'll just add that in there. So you need to cure these pieces. So like I said, they're still sort of, it's not soft, but there is a bit of potential give in there, and you need to just cure these pieces. So the way you do that is with some UV light, and obviously that occurs naturally in sunlight, and so they would cure themselves over time, but it would take quite a while, and you don't really want to be touching them while it's like this, because you can definitely feel it on your fingers. So the way to do that is with UV light, and the cheapest and sort of easiest way to do that would be on eBay. You can buy the nail varnish sort of UV machines where you put your nails in and it shines a light, and I think you can get them for about £15 on eBay. The only problem with those is I believe that the UV wavelength that they use isn't quite as strong, or isn't the right frequency or wavelength to cure these at the sort of optimum time and levels. So they do work, but there is better methods. And the only other problem is that the opening, it's obviously just meant for your fingernails, and that means if you've got any particular large models, you might struggle to get those in there. Obviously, a tank like this would be no bother, but you know, I've done some fairly large busts, and you know, you might have trouble fitting those in there. So what I've done is I've come up with this. I say come up with, I just stole it off the internet, but this idea, and it's basically a bread bin that I got for eBay, the cheapest one I could find, that had a sort of nice shiny interior, because you want the light to bounce and reflect. And what I've done is you can buy the LED strips, the UV lights, in a big long strip, and what I've done is just cut them to length and then soldered them all together, and then just punched a hole sort of through the back there for the power supply. It's lost a bit of its stickiness, but that's okay. There's probably easier ways to do this. I've seen people use like a bucket with tin foil wrapped around, and then you can just loop the LED strip round and round in the bucket, and that saves you having to do any cutting and soldering and things like that. But I went for this sort of bread bending option, and obviously you can see you've got loads more space in here, so you can get some more bigger models in and more models in there. So if I turn this on, yeah, that looks pretty dodgy, but it's worth. I'll put that down just to collect any liquid, any resin or water and isopropyl and all that's come off. So I'll give these sort of half an hour. I'll probably turn them over as well after a certain point, just to make sure it gets cured all over. But that's the sort of the end of the process. And I've got these two tanks here that here's two that I did earlier. So, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with those. They're really, really nice, really detailed. It's all there. I say the barrel on this one on my first attempt was no good. It's hard to see, but it's effectively flat on one side. But I added some more supports, and we've nailed it on that attempt. So that's what it's sort of all about. It's playing around with the supports and having a few shots, and you sort of build up some experience. But it's definitely not the sort of plug and play where you just throw any old model on there and it just prints off nicely first time. Well, a lot of the time it's not like that. It does require a bit of effort, a bit of time and experience. But you know, I printed these off in a few hours. I can print unlimited of them, and it's costing me about £1.30, £1.50 a tank, which is really good. And you can do all sorts of stuff. Do some figures, and you can do small bits of terrain. The build plate isn't particularly big, so as you've seen, I would struggle to get really more than a 15mm tank on, maybe some small bits. But you can, a lot of the sort of bigger models tend to come in like sliced up, so you can print the slices. And of course you can scale any of this. You know, if I want to do smaller tanks, if I want to bring this down to 12mm, 10mm, 6mm, I can just do that within the software, and off I go. So yeah, it's a pretty cool technology. So that's it. Hopefully it's giving you guys a sort of idea of what you can achieve with this stuff. If you've got any questions, then I would be happy to try and help. And that's about it. So take care, guys, everyone. Bye bye.